Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. So I am live streaming this one on Twitch for the first time in weeks, so let's not make this a lengthy opener. All you need to know is MapleStory 2 is going to be the game to stream this week. I'm going to be streaming it pretty much every day from Monday through the week. We will still have State of the Realm, of course, on Tuesday, a raid-focused one talking about the AlphaScape raid mechanics and whatnot. We will have Dauntless, the Ostian Repeaters, come out on Wednesday, and so expect 14, MapleStory 2, and Dauntless to all get mixed in this week. So it's going to be a busy one. As such, without further ado, let's get into thanking our sponsors for Mondays with Mr. Happy. That would be our supporters over on Patreon who've been combating hashtag demonetized for quite some time. Now, this list is definitely going to be off. Tomorrow is the first of the month, so I'll be able to make adjustments to it then. So please bear with me if your name belongs or doesn't belong here, as it I'll be looking over it tomorrow once the first of the month is actually passed. Usually it actually takes a few days for everything to settle out. But of course we have our Patron of Light First, Khuja on Jenova. They provide their picture, which you won't see live on the Twitch stream today, but you will see it on the YouTube video. So please be on the lookout for that. Thank you again, Khuja, for your continued awesome support over on Le Patreon. We, of course, have our long list of sponsors as well. We start with our standard sponsors, Nye-rick and Kaya Amatsuki of Midgardsormr, Rendil Gaming, Sabo Empire, Mrhappy, the Red Wings of Baron FC from Zalera, Fray Blackheart, Cidus Oreo on Shiva, Syd Hellwind of Gilgamesh, Afro Ninja from Malboro, Cheesecake from Leviathan, That Lame Weeb, Ashen Emiya of Cerberus, Argoti Tristam on Midgardsormr, Fafarian, Rendil, Giraffeswillrule, Stevie-Rex, and Neon. We have our elite sponsors. We have Senchi, Crimson and Talvi Swift of Coral, Just One Fox, Shadow Link on Tonberry, Dom, Asuka Wake from Jenova, Lamilionella of Midgardsormr, Sarah and the Avalanche Family on Malboro, Johnny Yatsu, Kifkin the Great Eagles on Exodus, Darkgraver, Kadeyoshi from Khuja, Skia Symphonia from Ragnarok, Rah Xephon from Exodus, Ranlayer Westos the Purple Warrior, Hedrick Redsteel on Exodus, Lexxie Valentine, Mantaru the Rivivus FC from Zodiac, Sour Cream and Chives from Jenova, Rynoet Chikara, Goetia Valfer of Siren, First of Fairy, Phoenix Down FC on Goblin, and Saren from Zodiac. Finally, we have our premium sponsors. We have Jonathan, Shinka, Casual Heroes FC on Midgardsormr, Tatachitaka on Hyperion, Kana Uzuki of Jenova, Yu Starla on Coral, Sathal, Sarah Frost from Behemoth, Diablo, Holy Tabasco, Red Thorn Asura, Asken Hawk from Shiva, Crass 015, Mustang, Serenity FC on Ultras, Cat Kazuma, Serial Kira on... See, I know that actually, I just realized one of these names is wrong. Or I don't know, it's one I just said. Yeah, it is one before. I'll have to go back and fix it. But anyway, let me finish these. Serial Kira on Cactar. Ignis Fairgun, that's the one. I need to remember to change the server for that person's name. I actually have it right here. Oh, I already changed it. Cool. I'm smart. Ignis Fairgun from Excalibur. Valestra of Famfrit. Knock Quarters from Excalibur. Krovos Moonscar. Private Mikey Spike. Nani Kirasami. Rudy Rudiger. Tin Colossus. Killer Hackman. Royal Jr. And Killtastic Jones. Anyway, finally almost choked on my own spit there at the end. Thank you to all of our sponsors for supporting over on Patreon as you do every month. But with that, we've got questions, so let's get some answers while we're at it. All right, question number 1 over on the forums. Hi, Happy. Hi. This is more of a rant rather than a question. It's a really short rant. Look at how... This is all the text. You guys are seeing all the text, so... this is a rant, so correct me if I'm not mistaken, but why can't my fellow bards learn that Foe Requiem does not stack? You mean the same bards that thought that foes reduced their DPS for all of those years? Honestly, I noticed you're specifically talking about 24-man's raids, Party Finder dungeon runs. Honestly, I know that a lot of people just kind of instinctively use their skills in the same order with every piece of content they go in, because it's just what they're used to doing. They're not really so much thinking, oh, another bard's using foes, especially if it's not being communicated as such. They're not looking at you. They're focused on what they are supposed to do at the beginning of every fight, what they would be doing if they were the only bard at the beginning of every fight. And so it's pretty common for these things to happen. No one really tries to coordinate raid debuffs and stuff like that inside of, you know, Party Finder, 8-man trials, 24-mans. Just no one does it. So, yeah, it's inefficient, but people do that anyway. I'm sure if you paid more attention, you'd see ninjas overlapping their trick attacks, like back to back to back to back to back, instead of like trying to make sure that the amount of time that the enemy is debuffed is at its maximum possible. So, yeah, I mean, that's all there really is to it. It's not really too much to get worried about because it's just second nature for a lot of people. Question number 2. Hello, long time, first time, yada yada. Simple. I like it. I've been contemplating asking this question for months. Since the last Q&A was short, I figured this is a good time to ask an opinion question. Yes, I know you hate the what do you think about Q&A posts, but I'm really curious. Feel free to be brief or skip, but I really want to know your answer as a person with depth in the 14 world and community. At least they apologized for it in advance. I can appreciate and respect that. Explanation and question are spoiler contained, used to keep tidy. Okay, so it's not actually spoilers, just using to keep it tidy. Okay, I've often felt that character class job design in 14 with the ability to do anything and everything removes a lot of the feeling of being unique. Aside from gear that's obtained from difficult endgame content, there's little you can do to set yourself apart. Anyone can memorize openers and rotations, anyone can look up bis gear, etc. There's also going to be a point where battle jobs are mostly implemented and there won't be great additional job choices. I'm still sorry that Rogue went Naruto Ninja instead of Assassin. The Rogue job quest and story were best in the game, but the Ninja ones with the silly villain character were utterly stupid, but I digress. I know you're no fan of the class job system, and I've many occasions mentioned it should and likely might be absolved entirely since it's more or less obsolete, so I got to thinking. Got to thinking about a class job system. I can already tell you what my answer is going to be. What are your thoughts on if we get battle job specializations, much like crafters have, where you have to pick 3 jobs that are an extraordinary role to focus on, and it unlocks a special job name like Assassin for Rogue that branches that reimagines the alternative of the ninja job. Give us something that separates us from the crowd and something unique we can bring to the table. So let me tell you, no. Unfortunately, my answer is pretty much a no, because you're just perpetuating the same exact issue that exists with the class job system and pushing it one step further. Ultimately, no matter what happens, whatever is most efficient will be played, which kind of already ruins the point of being unique. If every character has to pick 3 job specializations, just like they would with crafters, the only thing it's really going to promote is people to have more than one character. They're going to need a character for every 3 jobs for the people who like to omni-roll everything and play everything all together. It just doesn't accomplish anything. If you're going to design something that has a different feel, just design something that has a different feel altogether, instead of trying to branch it off of a class job, advanced job type of system. So for example, with the Assassin, if they were going to do something like that that was different from Ninja, then they should just go ahead and make it. You know, they shouldn't then try to tie it to Rogue and Ninja, especially because, as stated, the class system's kind of obsolete as it is. So, unfortunately, my short answer is no, and they've already pretty openly admitted that Summoner Scholar type thing is not something they'll ever do again either. So, they don't want more options on top of our classes and jobs. They want more jobs to be available overall. So, unfortunately, my thoughts are no. Alright, question number 3. This is technically my first time asking, kind of, sort of, so I have a first time of lifetime supply of pudding and or cinnamon applesauce. I'll take the cinnamon applesauce, believe it or not. So kind of a spoiler, but not really spoiler warning worthy ahead. Oh, you know what? I saw this before I started, so I know what this is about. So yeah, this isn't really that spoiler. This isn't really spoiler worthy. It's just something that's been name dropped for patches now. They've been name dropping it since 4.1. So it's like, it's kind of too dated to really give it a spoiler tag. So in 14, is Emiya, or have they mentioned Dalmasca by name a lot? I mean, we've been to Rabanastre. Ivalice as a whole is ingrained in Garlean history. That's the whole point of what we've been learning about the 24-mans, is that, you know, the Gaug and their influence on modern day Garleans. In fact, the idea that they are the ancestors of modern day Garleans is something that's going to become more and more prevalent when we go into an expansion that's largely talking about the history of the Garleans. So on top of that, with us pushing back against the Empire, Dalmasca being one of their reigning areas, and something we've actually known for even longer than 4.1, is not really too much of a surprise. But of course, you know, with Dalmasca, with Rabanastre, with all of the Ivalice things that have been coming out, you know, it's no surprise to anyone that Ivalice itself is a little bit more in the forefront of the story and how it's tied together to, or how it's reimagined in Final Fantasy XIV more specifically. So yeah, it's not really that surprising that Dalmasca has been dropped by name so many times since the expansion came out. We already knew it existed before the expansion came out. But yeah, no, I don't really think it's building towards anything. I just think that now that we know more about the history of the Garleans, that Ivalice and our version of it just has to come more to the forefront. I'm really hoping to learn more about that in the second lore book that's coming out later this year. You do have a second question, which I do not mind answering, by the way. What's your favorite zone or region in 14? So I actually feel like I answered this on my stream not too long ago. I can tell you right now, Heavensward areas don't really tickle my fancy all that much. Azus Law is really cool, but the Stormblood areas, I really, really like the Azim Steppe. For some reason, the wide open area of it is far more, I guess, interesting to me than like areas that are like surrounded by mountains or in tight corridors or deep in a jungle or a forest. This wide open area is just beautiful to look at, and it really makes you almost wish there was even more scope to it. Like with the surrounding areas that you can see off in the distance, you almost wish you could go there. And I don't really get that feeling with any of the other zones other than the Azim Steppe. So that's definitely going to be the winner. As for 11, I don't really have a favorite zone in 11. I guess I could just take the easy route and say like Altayu or something, but all the zones there, like even the beautiful looking ones, I think about how frustrating a lot of them are, and it ruins any emotion, any positive emotion I have about a lot of those zones. So I'll go with Altayu only because it's kind of an easy choice, but I don't really have a favorite zone in Final Fantasy 11. So no, and then the other thing is here with how active 11 is nowadays, I feel like it's gotten more traction. Yoshida said it's been getting more traction too. He said they're actually planning on making some big moves with 11 this year, so I'm curious what those will be. Probably not a mobile game though, right? Anyway, with that depressing realization, question number 4. Hey there, Mr. Happy. How you doing? I'm doing alright. You doing alright? I'm doing alright. My question is about streaming. My husband's been suggesting that I become a streamer since I babble on about games I played him anyway. So I was reading that sticky post, which was really inspiring, but there's one part I didn't see mentioned, or maybe I missed it. In between when you started and when you got your big break, how did you cope with knowing you were essentially talking to yourself most of the time? Sure, it's fun when someone comes by and chats, but how did you handle those times when no one would come by when you were starting out? I have a very distinct advantage here. I'm from New Jersey. We don't shut the fuck up, ever. I don't care if I'm alone. I don't care if there's 10 people, 100. We don't shut up. So I was pre-exposed to having a winning condition where I just talk anyway. I just liked talking to the point where it didn't matter. So unfortunately, that's not real advice for somebody. You can't just be like, well, be from New Jersey because we never shut the hell up anyway. But it's really just you don't even really talk to yourself. You kind of just narrate your thoughts. I guess it's just taking your thoughts and just doing this. Like, oh, I'm thinking this next thing is good. This is gonna happen. It's like, you know, I wonder if this is gonna happen. Oh, God, I hope not. Oh, please. Like, that's it. It's just literally taking thoughts and putting them in words and doing that until you have people to talk to. And then you talk to them as well. It can be mentally draining, but, you know, that's what practice is for. It's just something you got to exercise a little bit. Question number 5. Hiya once again, Mr. Happy. Hope your rating and adventures have been doing you well. They have. I got my Omega Fist this week. Yes. Got 2, kind of 3 questions, as one's personal monk main and one as a casual gamer. Question number 1, what's your perspective as monk with the Tombstone Tonfas? Would you absolutely get them or pass on them, even though it's the first time monks have gotten Tonfa-like weapons? I don't care about how things look, so I would pass on them because I already have my Omega Fists. However, if you care about how they look, your Tombstones will eventually be worthless to you anyway, so you might as well get them. Question number 2, so with all the new games and updates are already pre-existing popular games, the question comes to mind, how do you personally balance balance gaming and life Man, this is the question that has no answer. How do you balance gaming, streaming, and daily life over the past few days and in the upcoming near future? Would you consider games these days to be as taxing as work, given as how much labor is required to be the best you can be in the allotted time frames and loot rewards such as dailies and weeklies? No, none of that. It's just I already play games 7 hours a day. It's a game that I don't look at it from like a balancing gaming, streaming, and daily life. I look at it as how is every second I play a video game going to work for either my stream or my YouTube channel. I'm very rarely like, let me just play this because I want to. And if I do, I'm still going to produce some degree of content on it. So I don't really look at it that way. When I'm looking at like what I'll do with daily life, it'll be like Mel and I going and trying a new restaurant or, you know, traveling to an event or something. Even that's work, but it's not playing a video game at the same time. So I don't really look at it like that. I wouldn't say that games these days are really taxing. It's more so that I just have to be I have to be smarter about it, that I can't just see a game and be like, I want to play it. The decision has to be made on a deeper level than that. So I miss a lot of things I would otherwise like to play, and that I would have played before doing this, but won't now because it's not an efficient use of my time. Example of that would be Spider-Man. I streamed it for a couple of days, but then all these other things that were way bigger for my channel started happening, and I never got back around to Spider-Man since then. So because of that, it's pretty much in limbo right now, about 6 hours into a gameplay. Loved it, loved what I played, would love to play more, haven't had time for it. As you can tell from the beginning of this video, I've got a lot of other things on my hands. Plus, we have FanFest, I've got TwitchCon coming up later this month, so yeah, it's busy times. But, you know, that's what it is. It is what it is, it's what I signed up for, and it's good. So hopefully that answers the question. Fingers crossed. Thanks. Oh boy, that's a lot of text. I'm gonna look for a TLDR somewhere on this one, I feel. Hey Habs, how you doing? Patch 4.4 has been a wild ride. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Since this is my first post here ever, I might as well take the opportunity to thank you for your content. I've been playing the game since the launch of Stormblood. I've had your content right by my side basically the whole way. It's been both helpful and entertaining, especially State of the Realm. It's the one thing I look forward to now every week. So thank you for enjoying the content and for writing in. You have a lot of text, so I'm looking forward to this now that you said it's your first time and you said all these nice things. I owe you the honor of looking through the entirety of your post. First time bonus is you suffering, because I'm about to ask you a question about everyone's favorite new content. Eureka. Never mind, you just lost all those rights. Where's the TLDR at the bottom? Let's see. So actually, it's not that long. The question itself is kind of written somewhere in here, as I can see. Someone who enjoys Eureka personally. You know you're in the minority, but I really do find some deep satisfaction in putting a whole bunch of grind to get something cool. I wish it was cool, especially as someone who doesn't raid much due to anxiety problems. That said, I really try to put myself in the perspective when it comes to its fundamental issues. I may be totally wrong, but it seems to me that the biggest issue people have comes down to not the act of chaining monsters over and over, but the simple fact that our jobs are designed in such a way that makes chaining said monsters a stressful experience. That would be an accurate assumption. That would be an accurate observation from somebody who does indeed enjoy Eureka. To put it another way, it's almost like there's little actual difference between raiding and the act of chaining monsters, except for one of them. One's a lot more APM than the other, and that would be the chaining of the monsters overall. And one of them is also far less interesting in terms of what it actually demands of the player. Anyway, I don't want to post to drag on, so I'll top of my suggested additions, hunts and treasure maps. Do you think combat and UI overhaul perhaps similar to the one that was done for PvP? You know, I hadn't considered that, but actually, as much as I'm not a fan of PvE having the same type of system for PvP, Eureka is kind of conducive to the idea of having your buttons compressed. But the problem is it's still the frequency of how often you press the buttons that becomes the problem in Eureka, not so much how many buttons you have to press. I barely use the majority of my buttons when I'm going through Eureka because who gives, like, you need to be a little efficient to make sure you're chaining properly, but you don't, it's not like it's super strict and I'm worried about like DPS timings and stuff like that, like you would inside of like a well-organized raid scene. So I think your suggestion of Eureka kind of having its UI and its hotbars adjusted to be more like PvP, so there's less buttons to press, I think it actually isn't the wrong outlook to have on it, because I think it would be better for Eureka in particular. But Eureka itself is still, just from a design standpoint, you know, you made mention of it, it's just too linear. The Relic questline used to be about grinding hardcore, exactly like Eureka, but you grinded on things that were outside of this condensed area. You could make progress on other things that weren't just this arbitrary zone created for the sole purpose of locking a Relic weapon behind it. And that's, I think, the biggest thing. People were used to having a choice. People were used to being able to do their expert, do their leveling roulette. They were able to go out, do leave quests, collect materia. They were able to approach it in so many different ways, and you basically took all that away in exchange for killing fucking dragons for however many hours straight to get enough light to make a weapon. It's just so limiting compared to what it was before. And then there's no treasure maps, there's no leaves, there's no hunts. I mean, NMs technically, but not like the rest of the hunt system overall. So that's the problem. It's too limiting. Now, if they honestly took some of the concepts in Eureka and just applied them to overworld zones in small doses, like imagine if the locks had one of those cave systems in the Southwest, if one of those had these like super high level monsters that required parties to take on together, and all of a sudden that's a part of something bigger, that's a part of the world, and you're no longer locked into this zone and it's one of your options, all of a sudden it's not as limiting of a factor because that zone is still living and breathing for other reasons, and you've just integrated another reason to use it. So that's the thing I think I take away from Eureka. It's just the way it's separated from everything and the way it limits your progress is the bigger problem here, as opposed to it being just about the gameplay inside of Eureka itself. So we'll see how the rest of Eureka pans out. We will have the logo system in Pyros. We will have the open world dungeon or the emergency mission style raid that they call it in the 4th zone. But I still think they could learn a lot from just taking some of these ideas and integrating them in smaller doses in actual open world zones that we have already. All right, question number 7. What up, dude? Hope your day is going swell. It is, and it's about to be a very crazy week, so I better enjoy this day. So do you think in the near future, 14 may introduce factions for players to join? Zodiac Hydaelyn, Light versus Dark to establish balance. I assume this was the route when they were going when they first introduced the Warrior of Darkness, that it would be 14's version of the Alliance versus the Horde. I can tell you right now, the answer to this will be a solid no. They do not want to separate players by faction because they want all players to be able to play with one another. So that alone will immediately eliminate any sort of assumptions of us having anything that's faction related or faction based at all. They're never going to want to separate players like that more than they already do with the grand companies. It just doesn't add anything to gameplay. The sense of loyalty is about it, but it's inhibiting the number of people you can actually play with. So no, I don't think it will happen. I'd be very surprised. I'd be incredibly shocked if we were to ever get something like that ever down the line. So it's just my opinion on it. All right, question number 8. Hey, Haps, pretty much had the same thoughts about the question mark guy from 4.4 as I do. That's funny, if you say so. Let's see. We have how come this hasn't become a meme yet? I'm afraid to click that one. My thoughts on Alex Escape 4.4 and about the replayable solo instance with a golden bonus question. Okay, I'll actually take that one because the solo instance thing comes up quite frequently. Last week I talked about solo instances, and now I ask again. Do you think having a section in the Duty Finder for this would be nice? And as a bonus question, how do you feel about having the Chocobo races and Lords of Vermilion with a daily bonus? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by the second one, unless you mean like a roulette for that, but there's not really roulettes. We already have challenge logs for those. I don't think we need anything else. The last thing I want to do is encourage even more Chocobo racing and Lords of Vermilion because it's just not popular. People do it for their challenge logs and pretty much move on, or they enter the tournament to get free MGP, and that's pretty much it. Like, I don't think giving more to those things that people are doing for those set purposes really makes them any more attractive. As for the section in the Duty Finder, I feel like they kind of have to do that if they ever want us to be able to replay them. It's come up a few times. A lot of people want to be able to replay the solo instances, such as, you know, the Grand Melee or the Nadam or things like that. And some people have even suggested a roulette for it, a solo story instance roulette, just to take these resources that were spent, these scenarios that were created, and give them, I guess, a replayability so that they're not just developed for a one-time experience and then forgotten unless you, as Yoshi P put it, make a new character. And I think it's fine. I think it's a good idea. I probably wouldn't use it very much. I'm already overflowing with tomestones. I don't need to level anything. So for me, it doesn't have much value, but for the general populace, it does. So I'm okay with the idea. It's just, do I think they'll do it? No, unfortunately, but I'm down for it. Alright, question number 9. Sup, brethren? Is it even possible to add a 4th healer to the game without causing some major problems regarding hot shield balancing? I think 14's a little too tunneled on hot versus shielding balance. There's a lot of interesting healers across other games that don't necessarily work in one of these two ways, and they focus more on the way you actually access your healing and the way that people actually receive their health back, as opposed to does it directly heal or does it shield, which is what Final Fantasy XIV does. It's very binary and it's very limiting. So I do think it's possible to add a 4th healer, but you kind of have to take one of the existing ones and give them their own identity. Probably Astrologian along the way, because Astro was kind of incorporated just with the concept that, well, we have 2 types of healers and that's what people use, so we'll make sure it can be one or the other. That's pretty much what it's good for, you know? Yeah. What if the new healer is primarily a hot healer, maybe with a single target shield like White Mage? I mean, you literally just described White Mage, because White Mage has the single target shield and has hots, and this new healer and White Mage get paired and do need to do AoE shielding, then you're screwed. It also could just be that if they are going to have shielding, more shielding. Actually, we've already started seeing this. I mean, tanks now offer shielding a lot with Shake It Off and Divine Veil. Blackest Night being a single target option, but still there. Having other roles being able to access those things kind of opens up the possibility of the healers not being so reliant on taking on those functions altogether. So that might be where you look. You might be to take those functionalities and apply them to roles outside of the actual constraints that we kind of imagine healers having right now. So it is hard to imagine with the way our game is designed right now of getting a healer that doesn't just do one of those 2 things and actually has a more unique gameplay. But then I think about our DPS, and while they all technically do the same thing in terms of like what they actually offer, they all do it in unique and different ways. I think that's what we need to look at, the actual gameplay style of how healing is achieved, and as opposed to just does it heal or does it shield. How will they do that? I don't know. I'm not one of the developers, and we don't know what they're planning. We don't know if they have any major changes planned for any of the existing jobs. I'm sure they do, but we don't know what any of them are. So Is it possible? Absolutely. Other games have achieved it. There's no reason we can't. It's just a matter of how they go about achieving it. That's going to be where the real questions lie. Question number 10. Hi, Mr. Happy. Hello. How has your normal week been? My week's been so normal, Nate. So incredible. Those of you who don't watch my stream have no idea what I'm talking about, but trust me, you'll know. My question is about the Leap of Faith gate in the Gold Saucer. As I am someone who struggled with Khuga Tower, never finished the tower in Costa del Sol, I found a couple of iterations Leap of Faith to be very forgiving, even going all the way to get to Gildan and Golden Cactar. I think it was made intentionally easier due to the time constraint. Is there a subsection of jump puzzle enthusiasts who find it too easy, boring, etc.? For a follow-up, do you feel that the changes made to the Gold Saucer with 3 gates per hour instead of 2 increase the rewards for any way the wind blows based on the how far you actually make it in there, as opposed to it just being failure or success? In the addition of Leap of Faith, decrease in the mini cacpot cost to play has given it new life in many ways may have seen it old and mundane. Changes they made to the Gold Saucer have definitely made it more tantalizing. The next thing needs to be a better influx of rewards that are added to the Gold Saucer more frequently. But yeah, they've pretty much taken the Gold Saucer and I guess eliminated the... I guess the barrier for entry, which was, you know, a lot of things used to have higher MGP costs. MGP rewards used to not be as frequent, so you had to spend a lot more time in there. You feel pretty good about going in there, maybe spending an hour doing some of the gates, doing your mini crackpot, doing your jumbo crackpot, even just doing your challenge logs in there. You really feel like you're making progress. Challenge logs, I feel like, is where that all started. And then when they started doing the annual event every summer for the Gold Saucer, it's just gotten better and better. It's gotten more approachable. It's gotten more attractive. Now, individual things in there, such as Chocobo Racing or Lords of Verminion, are not really done in their intended way. They're just kind of abused to get the challenge log rewards. The few people who do enjoy those things kind of just do them on their own, and it's like they're playing a single-player game at that point. So, yeah, no, it's definitely been improved. It's definitely given it some new life. How long that'll last, we don't know. It really depends on how frequently they add new rewards to it. As for the jump puzzles in the Leap of Faith, one of the big things about the jump puzzles in the Leap of Faith versus jump puzzles like Khuga Tower or Costa del Sol is that Final Fantasy XIV is not a game built for jumping. It is not Super Mario. It is not Guild Wars 2. It is not a game that is made for platforming. That's just a fact. The big problem that a lot of people have with things like Khuga Tower or the Costa del Sol is that it's asking you to make jumps that the game kind of doesn't have good systems around making. Jumps that require very exact speeds, almost like abusing the hitboxes of things so that even though you don't actually land on it, you still get credit for it. Whereas with the Leap of Faith ones, they're all kind of designed with the base jumping skills for the game, or like kind of like what it's good at on the most basic of level, from jumping from A to B. It captures that a little bit more exactly. There's not as many things where you need to get, you know, bonked on the head and then land on something else, which requires a very exact angle, or you know, mounting up to get a new speed, or all sorts of these little tiny tricks you used to see in some of the other ones. So it's just built with the game's actual like maximum jumping potential in mind and not trying to get you to exceed that. So with that, it goes pretty quick. I have no doubt that because it only has a 10-minute limit and it's kind of more for people that are just taking place in events at the Gold Saucer, that they also tuned down the difficulty so that it didn't take as long. There's multiple paths. You have these bonus objectives to go for, which I think is a great idea, something I actually wanted in the Costa del Sol one, to make it more event-like, I suppose. And it's good for what 14 should be good at in regards to jump puzzles. And I hope that they continue to make adjustments to any of the jump puzzles that they make in the future that kind of more mimic what Leap of Faith asks you to do, as opposed to what stuff like Khuga Tower asks you to do. All right, so we have the last question on the forum, which was asked earlier today. Hey, Haps, first time question, so enjoy a bonus of bacon. Also, Blitzball, best minigame. I'll kill you. So with all the ways we now have to cap tomestones each week, we don't really need to do expert roulette or similar things for tomestones. Would you want it so that once you are capped for the week on the current tomestone, it transfers the excess tomestones to either Mendacity or Poetics? You know, I never really thought of that. It would really reduce the value of those tomestones. Like, I sell Mendacity materials. If I got even more Mendacity from doing that stuff, then the amount that's available probably goes up to the point where those things are so invaluable that I don't even consider them for making gil anymore. It's not inherently a bad idea. It just comes with some repercussions that would affect me personally, so it's hard to have an unbiased opinion about them. So is it a good idea in concept? Absolutely. It creates value for something that someone may lose value for relatively early in the week with so many ways to cap tombstones. How much value does it really add? I don't know if it's enough to even get people to go do an expert, even though they're already capped. I don't think it would be. And it also would just increase the amount of tombstones that people are receiving again, which we're already receiving so many as it is. Even if it is another type of tombstone altogether, which makes the resources that come from those tombstones less valuable because there's more of them. And so, yeah, it is a good idea systematically. How it would actually affect everything else, I don't know if it would actually have an impact in getting people to do the content, even though they already capped for the week, versus the people who do would then just flood the market with more stuff. So it's tough. It's a really tough call to make there, what the right move is, but not a bad idea. I'll at least say that. That's the last question that's over on the forums, and for the first time in weeks, I actually have time for questions from the Twitch chat itself. So, Twitch chat, if you have some good questions, I'll include them in the video. If not, well, at least you tried, right? Let's see what you got. Alright, so we had some good discussions on the Twitch chat. I may include one or two of them in the video. I don't know if I have at this point, so I'm recording this as if I haven't included any of the discussions we've had. It's a lot of discussions that I'm just super used to having, or I've elaborated on them in questions that have been asked in previous weeks. So if you want to ask your questions live, whether or not they make it in the video, though, just make sure you tune into my stream Sundays, usually around noon Pacific, but I did this one a little bit earlier because I got a busy day ahead of me for YouTube video stuff. So as long as you're watching my stream on Sunday, there's a chance you get to ask the question, whether or not it makes it into the video. But if you want to ensure that your question makes it into the video, regardless of what it is, be sure to ask on the forums. On the YouTube video, if you go to the Dream Network forums link in the description, that will be where you can ask your questions. If you're watching this live on Twitch, head to dreamnetwork.tv, or just go to one of my previous Mondays with Mr. Happy videos and find the general forum and then locate the one for next week. And the one that's not locked, pretty much, is the one where you can ask the questions. But anyway, that's going to be a wrap for this episode of Mondays with Mr. Happy. I'm going to hang out with my Twitch chat for a little bit longer, but again, thank you to all of our Patreon supporters that we mentioned at the beginning of the video, and hopefully you guys are looking forward to a week filled with Maple Story and Final Fantasy XIV and Dauntless. It's going to be busy. Free time. I do loathe you. Anyway, I'm going to hang out with the Twitch chat for a little bit, so thank you for watching this over on YouTube. I will see you next week, and until then, take care.